Hello everyone and welcome to Two Pigs in a Pod, a podcast for the people of Glazing by the people of Glazing. I'm George Lewis, editor at the People in Glazing Society, or more commonly known as PiGs, and I'll be your host. PiGs began in 2004 and has held numerous informal networking events all over the UK and more recently in the USA to bring members of the glazing and fenestration sector together to network, socialise and to be the facilitators to build and cement relationships to push the industry forward to the next level. The glazing sector is an abundance of stories, characters and opinions, and in each episode we'll aim to share some of those stories with people from throughout the whole supply chain and beyond, debating the industry's biggest talking points, while also getting to know them on a more personal level, discussing their careers within glazing and what the future of our sector looks like in their eyes. Our guests today are Andy Green and Mark Walker. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hi, George.
So we'll start off with you, Andy. For those that don't know who you are, I'm not sure there's not many people in this industry that don't, but can you just give us a brief explanation of who you are and what you do?
Yep, as you said, Andy Green, Sales Director at Selecta Systems. I got involved with the company in '86 as a customer, one of the original customers. I then joined the company in '89 and I've been there ever since.
Okay, Mark?
I'm Mark Walker, Marketing Manager for Selecta Systems. I've been with the company now since 1993, and in my current role I've been in there since 2014.
Okay. And for those that don't know who Selecta Systems are, can you give a brief explanation of what you do?
We're one of the very few left window systems houses, extruders. We're the only independently owned extrusion company now in our industry, and we offer a sort of one-stop shop on our 9-acre extrusion site down in Birmingham.
Okay. And it goes straight to you about how did you get into the glazing sector? You said you was a customer first of all, but in the actual sector itself, how did you get into it in the first place?
I got into it in '83, and dare I use the term the double glazing salesman. It was the easy option to get into sales, which is what I wanted to pursue. There was always that promise that if you did well, you get a company car. So when you're young, as I was then 18, you think I'm getting a free car. But there was an abundance of sales outlets for the double glazed window that there was a huge intake and turnaround of sales staff. So it was, to be fair, it was quite an easy option to get into sales, and I enjoyed it.
Okay, Mark, how did you come a bit later into the industry? But what was your route into it?
For me, basically, at the age of 18, I was coming along to Selecta for what I felt was a summertime job. It was there to help out the business, help myself out. And then over the course of the following years, I'd worked my way through the business, moving from like the warehouse environment all the way through into the office environment. And along the route, done many roles, put myself forward for many roles during that time. Ended up taking in charge of things like the health and safety side of things, the quality management system, to eventually end of 2006, I left the business for a short while to set up on my own as a consultant externally. And during that time, I still kept in contact with Selecta. They were one of my customers along the time I was along that route, and then eventually was asked to come back to the business back in 2011, and I've been there since, and obviously progressed through a couple of roles to the role that I am today.
And do you think that because you did so many roles within Selecta in the first time and the second time, do you think that helped you actually to become where you are now in marketing, that you actually know all parts of the business?
I think it's kind of key that the fact that the working through every kind of area of the business over those years has given me the experience and the knowledge of not just the operation side of things, especially when working in the quality management system side of things. So you're writing the procedures and processes for it, but we're also getting involved with a lot of the people. And I think that's one of the key parts of what within Selecta is working with the people. It's not just knowing the operational side of things, but knowing that side of the business as well.
Yeah. Okay. And Andy, when you first started did you know anything about glazing? When you said you wanted to be a salesman, but you ended up in, what did you know about glazing before you came into it?
I'd heard the term double glazing, that's all I did know. There wasn't a PVC frame out there, so you had to quickly learn how to sell a double glazed unit into a single glazed wooden window. And then all of a sudden the PVC started to hit the market. And I think with any industry, if you're there right at the start, you sort of progress with your knowledge as the product progresses in the market. So that gave me a little bit of a head start and made life a little bit easier for me.
Okay, and same question for you. What did you know about glazing before you started? You said you started coming here as a sort of a summer job. What?
Absolutely nothing. I just knew that I had windows and doors in my house, and
Yeah.
that's about it. And coming into the industry, it was quite strange. It was an eye-opener. As a fresh-faced kind of youngster coming into it, I didn't know what to expect. And I think over the years, you kind of learned that it was an infectious kind of industry, the people, and it's just kind of strange, and it kind of like it suited myself and my own kind of like personality and you know, and maybe career as it ended up being. So
Okay. Andy, what kind of training was there training that you've been on throughout the years to actually learn more about the industry or products within the industry that's helped you get big, say, in the industry for so long?
No, when I first got into the practical side of it, my father had an injection moulding company, which I wanted to go down the plastics route there. But he then came across this little company called Selecta and purchased some machinery that would enable PVC frames to be made. And I went in and just day by day learned how to produce a plastic window frame. Then you learned how to fit a frame, then you learned all the aspects of it until I got to the point where I was able to take that knowledge out to the marketplace. And Selecta's business model in those days, we used to initiate a lead, get the machinery in and supply them profile, but then you had to train people because a lot of our original customers were redundant coal miners.
Okay.
So they were coming from a completely different industry. So you needed to attend the factory. This is how you cut profile. This is how you which I'd got that knowledge, which is then when I joined Selecta. Yeah. And
was that something that was easy to do, to actually train these people that have come from completely different industry, to actually train them up?
Not all the time, believe me. It was not. You know, we've trained taxi drivers. But I think because you're doing it quite often, you adapt a way of teaching somebody that isn't really knowing what they're doing. But in the 80s, the early 90s, the systems were that easy to put together. You know, it wasn't as complicated as it can be now.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it worked. We trained people up, and we've still got the few customers back from the 90s that are still with us from those days. Yeah.
And Mark, what's one thing you found over the years that you didn't actually expect the glazing industry to be? Is there anything that stands out?
I think one of the major things for me is how close the industry is. I think, and we've spoke about this a few times, haven't we, that, you know, we can go to these events, networking events and so forth, and how people are so welcoming and engaging. You know, there's not many kind of, I would say, industries where competitors could get together and suppliers and fabricating installers from all areas of the industry and get on so well and share industry knowledge, sometimes industry secrets, and once I've had a few beers, a bit more information.
More information.
Yeah. So I think that's what kind of surprised me, and I think that's what kind of makes the whole industry interesting. Yeah.
Would you say the same, Andy?
Yes. Yeah. I think it is an interesting industry. There's always something different happening, whether it be within our side of the industry or whether it be with the fabricator. And if it's with the fabricator, it's left to us to deal with that. So yeah, it's.
Okay. And moving on to a question about the glazing sector in general, I'm sure we could have a whole podcast episode on just how the sector was and how it is now. But how do you think it's changed over the time you've been in it?
It's a balance of scales. I think the end user is benefiting now because they're so much more protected. Being involved in the early days, I obviously saw all the selling methods, good, bad or indifferent. All that anybody wanted to do then was chase a sale. And unfortunately, it didn't matter what it took, they were going to get that sale and the next guy would go a step further. Now I think the that has died, and people go about things a lot differently. And rather than a cash cow, it's now treated more of a business. So, and you'll find that there isn't many now that go knocking doors and trying to generate leads. It's the customer goes to the fabricator.
Yeah. Do you think it's hard to change that perception of the customer? Like we've mentioned time and time again about that white gold era. Do you think we're still seeing people that, or homeowners especially, that think you're still just in that era?
I think the older generation will see that. I think the younger generation weren't submitted to any of that. But using the white gold series, I've watched all of them. And word for word, that happened. There's nothing in there that has been overwritten. That is how it all happened. When I first watched it, I thought, are people going to watch this and start to alienate themselves against the industry? But then I found myself being asked the question off friends, that's so funny, they're good writers. I'm like, they are good writers, compliments to them, but they were just writing about what exactly happened. People found the humorous side of that, because they're not. If you'd have shown that in the 80s, people would have been a little bit, this is what's happened to me and I don't agree with it. Now they look at it as a humorous sort of event, because they haven't come across that. But I think the older generation will still remember that man in the house for 3 hours and he's not leaving until he signs a deal. And
I think that's what's improved, hasn't it? The reputation of the industry over the years.
Yeah. Cleaned it up.
Yeah.
And let's face it, it was the industry itself that sort of muddied its paws through the methods.
And if you could go back to you starting out in your own career, obviously you didn't know that you'd spend such a long time in it, both of you. Like, what bit of advice would you give to your younger self that was starting out in the industry, knowing what you know now, whether it be about the industry? We'll start with you, Mark.
I think for me, I think I've done everything and achieved everything I probably possibly wanted to do during the course of being at Selecta and outside and that. Because for me, it was always trying to better myself. I didn't come from a background of going to your college, university, getting all of degrees and so forth. Everything that I've kind of done has been self-taught and wanting to be better. So it doesn't matter from what kind of background or what you've done previously. It just proves that anybody, if you've got the right attitude and you've got the right mindset, that you can achieve. And I've always kind of looked at it from that point of view.
Yeah, and do you think that the industry itself has helped you be so successful in your own life and your career?
I think it's being given opportunities. It's about people and the people around you that are in the businesses and outside of the businesses. And I think over the years, it's being given those opportunities by those people that through your own kind of willing and want, that gives you that career step, which I maybe probably wouldn't have got in other organisations and other businesses, whereas Selecta's been very accommodating over the years to want to develop individuals.
Yeah, I think you're right in terms of you're not the first person that said that this industry gives you an opportunity, whether you take it or not, and use it and have a good career. But it does bring a lot of opportunities, doesn't it, to actually have a really successful career in various different parts, whether it be in sales or marketing or anywhere. There are those opportunities all the time.
Well, I kind of look back and I think, well, back in the earlier days when I in my teens, I wanted to go down the route where I am now. All I've done is just taken the long road around to it, and got involved with a business that's given me the opportunity after opportunity to do that, and to eventually fall into the role that I've always wanted to aspire to be. I mean, I love doing what I do on the marketing side of things and the graphic design and everything else that comes with it. And I think having the right people, surrounding with the right people, has helped me to do that. And obviously for yourself, kind of pushing yourself and pushing your boundaries and learning. And I'd like to say a lot of stuff that I've done over the years has been kind of self-taught. And I think one of the good things that for me as well was when I did set up on my own for those 4.5 years, it gave me other experiences outside of this industry, which gave me the possibility of bringing those experiences back in. I was working in kind of engineering backgrounds and utility companies, people like food manufacturing. So everything was all different to what I've been used to. but there was certain amounts of skills and certain amounts of knowledge that then you could bring back into there what I wouldn't have had before, while still working alongside the people at Selecta as well.
Okay. And Andy, is there anything you'd tell your younger self about how it's
There's
gone?
a lot what I would have told my younger self. A lot just do not do that.
Yeah.
But I think a bit of advice I've always sort of said I would have given myself was take nothing for granted. Wear the eyes in the back of your head and don't leave a stone unturned, because the way the industry took off, it took off at lightning levels, and the industry itself was a success within itself, and people tended to think everything was going to fall in your lap, me as well. So you would sort of run with everything, expecting everything to be there, but you would be missing stuff behind you. But if you'd have slowed down and just sort of took your time a little bit, you'd have still picked it all up, but you'd have picked a little bit more up. So yeah, just take nothing for granted and leave no stone unturned.
Okay. And do you think that helped you, having been in the industry at that time? Obviously we had the pandemic, which there was a massive home improvement boom that took off again, that's obviously slowed down now. Do you think that experience actually helped you to say, it's brilliant that the industry is booming, but to actually hold steady and
without any doubt, when we came back from the pandemic, I personally expected to return to a considerable reduction in business. As you quite rightly said, the construction industry went through the roof. Everything, sales went through the roof, with new business and particularly with existing. And yes, it did sort of make you look on the cautious side, thinking, hang on a minute, this has happened before, and it did take a nosedive in the early 90s, but we got through it. But it hasn't slowed down. But you still can't sit here and think this will be the same next year, the year after, the year after, the year after. I just treat it, I'm in a bubble, and I can only get so much air in that bubble, and it may pop one day, but it's for me to protect while it's growing.
Okay, and that leads quite nicely on to how does the glazing industry or our sector look from your guys' point of view?
We can only comment, only comment on our own business, and to be quite honest, it's phenomenal at the moment. The growth and the investment we're making is something we never would have expected to make. We had certain levels that we wanted to get to, which seemed at the time not unachievable, but very, very difficult to get to those levels and accomplish the service to the customers, achieve the service to the customer. We far exceeded them. With the pandemic, it was quite difficult because nobody expected in any sector to have to deal with everything we had to deal with. So nobody had a plan B. But you've got to have a plan C, because if plan B didn't work, we weren't aware, but you put those plans into place. We took a huge risk with massive investment, and that's paid off dividends, because without the investment we would not be able to sustain the amount of bar length that is going out of our factory. Now we're doing it with a good cushion behind us for more.
There was always kind of plans, and that wasn't for growth and expansion.
Yeah, but never to this level.
Not to this level, and so quick.
At all, yeah, that's the other thing. Because we came back, I think it immediately hit sort of 20-30% increase in demand, and nobody was ready for it. And then obviously we had the resin shortage, so everybody went busy, and there was a very limited amount of material available, so you've got to come up with a plan where that was concerned again. So it was a very taxing time, but Selecta as a business, and with Mark, picking up on what Mark said, and the people that are within the business, we got through it, and very, very successfully.
Okay. And Mark, I'll ask you this question in terms of if someone, you came from outside the glazing industry, like if someone approached you and said, yeah, I want to get into it, sounds good, but I don't really know much, like how would you describe it? How would you sell it to them?
How?
Yeah.
How?
I would, I'm sorry, you asked me that, but I would say
to describe.
The one big problem at the moment with this industry is getting youth into the industry, and we're all finding it, because I talk to other profile houses, they're finding the same. But if I was to sort of speak to somebody, whatever they're not good at, there are other opportunities within the industry. There are that many openings with technical, with production, even down to your transport side, your sales side. If you're not suited to that, try this. If you're not suited to that, there will be something, because it's such a diverse, we're such a diverse sector of the industry. There will be something for somebody, but it's attracting the young guys young guys and girls into the industry.
Yeah,
I think like we've said earlier, is maybe there is still a stigma attached to the industry in regards to it being a double glazing kind of industry, which we have, really done well over the years to dismiss and to put to one side. But maybe that still kind of sits there. Now, maybe it is just an education process from all of us, within there, from the people at the top all the way down to the bottom. Yeah. And I think it's a hard kind of sell in one sense, but the opportunities there, like Andy's just said, are massive. They're huge.
And we are a very very, very relaxed business. And a lot of it comes down to something I've always thought of. If it isn't broken, don't mend it. And we're achieving it, and you can hear laughter throughout the office, you can hear banter. If people are happy in the position, of which we've got a lot of long-term members of staff, a very, very small turnover of staff. Our problem is the people that have been with us years, they're coming up for retirement. You've got to replace these guys, but going back, we can't get the guys in there. But it's.
Do you think that we have a brilliant industry, and we hear these stories, hear yourself, hear others say how amazing the products are and all that, but do you think we're not very good at actually spreading that to the wider outside of our industry? I think we're really, really brilliant at having the conversations like at PiGs, where we say, yeah, we're doing well and you're doing well, but actually not many people outside that bit know.
I agree. I think you're perfectly right. I think we all talk about how good we are as an industry and everything, but outside of these kind of four walls, we do very much struggle to get that message across and outside.
And we do tend to deal with a lot of ostriches when you come to that. They've all got their heads buried in the sand. So you've got to pull their head out and explain, this, and as I was saying to Mark earlier on, all of a sudden, you see them start taking an interest in the industry, but you've got to sort of, not physically, but you've got to sort of shake them and wake them up and say, look, we're here. Yeah.
I think the other side of things as well, that maybe people don't see that there's a glamorous side to windows and doors. It's
Is there?
I might have missed that.
Yeah.
No,
you see from the point of view like that, people look at it, it's just a bit of plastic, say from our point of view. We've said the same kind of thing, we're selling plastic kind of thing, and that kind of glamour doesn't seem to come across to the younger generation of today.
I think if you turn up at a fit show, you'll sort of see that glamorous side, the incredible products that are actually out there that you just see as a window and door, but actually there's so much more to it.
There is so much more, and I think the problem that we've got nowadays is through the education kind of system that we've got, is maybe a lot of the younger people now are looking at more glamorous roles, and they're being, you've got to go to university, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, and looking at roles that are still available in this industry, but not looking within the industry. I know a lot of kids and a lot of people growing up nowadays want to be YouTubers and influencers.
Do podcasts.
Doing podcasts.
Yeah.
But you're going to be an influencer soon, aren't you? I reckon after this.
Your influence.
You can tell me after what one of those is.
So if you had to say what the industry in 3 words, you had to describe what the industry is like. For Mark, I'll go to you first. What would you say the 3 words?
Thought hard about what kind of 3 words you can utilise for this industry, and I think one's resilient, definitely, because as an industry I think we are very resilient. Well, whatever seems to be thrown at us, we get through it, and I think it's engaging, definitely engaging, and that's from like things like doing PiGs, all the networking events, to things like the Fit Show, all the way through, and I think it's also kind of captivating. I think once you're in there, I think you struggle to get out.
Yeah.
And I think because of the people and because of the kind of the friendships and everything that you build up, not just within your colleagues, within your own kind of working environment. I think it's outside of that as well. And I think that those kind of 3 things really summing up for me with this industry.
Okay. And then moves quite nicely on to talk about PiGs. We're on a PiGs podcast. So, how important are events like PiGs, like you mentioned the Fit Show as well, like how important are these networking events that we have for
I think
our
they're
industry?
extremely important because unlike a product exhibition, so you would stand there and you're explaining that this product does this, which is important for people to know. It's a show of people. I think because of the environments that the venues that are booked, I think people's guards drop when you've got this. I'm this company, they're their company, so I can't talk to these people. But everybody suddenly, it just encourages a relaxed atmosphere, and you start seeing people talk that you think you wouldn't imagine, and people are talking to you, which I think is one of the downsides of the industry, is that profile houses don't seem to want to talk to one another. We did when there was a resin supply issue, and all of a sudden we were talking to the other directors of other places because obviously they were suffering the same as us, and it's suddenly, the defences collapsed. But that's what PiGs does. And you see the regular faces there, then you'll see somebody that you've not seen before, they introduce themselves, and you're like, actually, would you talk to me about this? So I think it's a big thing because it's not a product network, a product networking, it's a people networking, and I think that's massively important.
And I think you end up speaking with people that you'll never do business with.
Yeah.
And I think, it's great, but there may be some kind of opportunity that leads on from that.
Yeah, or something they say just that you can use for your business.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've seen that loads of times, that you end up kind of networking with people like that wouldn't directly kind of work with you, but may lead to something outside of that where there may be further business opportunities.
Yeah. Okay, and obviously you're a Birmingham company, and we've got a PiGs in Birmingham this year. How important is it to have, in your eyes, to have an event in Birmingham, not just because it's a local one? Yeah, down the road to you. You can
hugely important. It's not a long journey.
Yeah.
We've obviously, I would say, we're completely nationwide. But I would even, in fact, 35% of our total customer numbers are in the Birmingham and surrounding areas. So we also know a lot of the Birmingham suppliers, not particularly with extrusion, but ancillaries and whatnot. And because it's our biggest area, and it is a very condensed area, we tend to see, or it's the time to meet competitors, other industry suppliers that are supplying into our customer. And obviously because it's our local one, so it's sort of, with his accent, we're flying the flag,
And what is the glazing sector like in the Midlands? What is it? Because it's the middle of the country? Is it a strong part?
Yeah, other than London, I would say it's the most dense area for fabricators. You can't turn a corner without finding a fabricator in Birmingham, but that's good for the industry because obviously there's increased demand in those areas. It drives price down to the end user, so the end user's benefiting as well. But no, I think Birmingham is a very, very busy area. Birmingham and the Midlands in general are a very, very busy area for our industry.
Okay. And what would you say makes the glazing sector in the Midlands different? You mentioned about your accent, which is one of the things. But what's different about the Midlands to anywhere else because you say you're nationwide, so you know what it's like from north to south to east to west?
Because of it being a very busy area, a very condensed area of fabricators. It's a very wild sort of area. Everyone's on the go all the time. It's not sort of a relaxed, and they don't go into whatever they're doing with their eyes closed. Whereby when you when you deal with people in other areas, maybe more rural, they've got a little area to themselves, and nobody comes into my area, so they just carry on, and they're a lot more relaxed about it. But when you're talking to people, that they're sort of looking around, there's somebody going to come and get it. So it's an interesting side to the business working mainly in the big cities anyway, but London or Birmingham. But
yeah. Okay. And obviously you've been supporters of PiGs for forever.
Since day dot.
And if you were to, you've been around the country with PiGs, like if you were to take it anywhere doesn't have to be the UK, but in the world, where would you take it? Mark, I'll go to you first, but is there anywhere on your bucket list that you'd like to take PiGs in an ideal world?
I'd love to go to New York. city that never sleeps.
Yeah.
That's perfect for pigs.
And I'm on a similar level of either Hong Kong or Shanghai, because the atmosphere out there is just electric without you doing anything, and you know that's what pigs generate. So it would fall well into that sort of environment.
If not Birmingham again.
Yeah, easy.
Yeah, another one in Birmingham.
It's easy to get there.
Yeah, and easy to get back.
Yeah.
And if you was in my position, you was hosting this podcast, who would be your dream guest? It doesn't have to be someone from the industry. It can be someone from...
For me, it would be anybody from 80s, 90s, from this industry that shared the same experience that I did, that I could sit and have a conversation with and relate to the stories, because I'm an elderly person now. A lot of the people that were around in the double glazing days, they've probably departed from the industry. But instead of telling a story to these guys at the office, you know, we used to do this, we used to do that, you could share it with somebody who'd say, like, yeah, I remember that. So that would be the perfect person for me.
Yeah, I agree, exactly the same. Because we spend many a time sitting in the office and reminiscing and talking the stories, and you've got kind of the younger generation around us, haven't you? Kind of thing, listening in and thinking, are these stories true?
That's what astounds me, is when you've told the story, then somebody will say, is that actually true? Like, I was there. You know, I'm not talking about somebody else. I was there. But if you think somebody told me that when I was 18 to 25, I'd be thinking they should be writing books here, these people. But,
or white gold.
Or white gold, white gold, yeah.
And like you say, you've been at Pig since the start. There must be a good few memories, maybe not all for the camera.
At what stage?
Yeah, past the hangovers. Is there any memories? Mark, we'll come to you first. Is there any memories that stands out?
I think there's no specific kind of memory. I think it's the memory for me is it's the people again.
So many memories.
I think what I really enjoy more than anything is meeting back up with what I call as my pigs friends, kind of thing, and networking people, because the people I wouldn't speak to generally during the working week, month or so forth. So it's a kind of like, they're back again, and you get your kind of associates that you mingle with, which you talk to. But then the nice side of it is sometimes there's somebody new there, and who you get introduced to through another kind of thing, and then that just continues. And I think it's meeting those industry friends that kind of makes it for me.
And is there any that you're allowed to say?
The first one, which I've got a feeling was a Manchester one. I'm sure it was there's a good memory, yeah. And I think it was because you're about to walk into the unexpected. And I don't care what sector you're in, there's always that bit of apprehension because nobody knew what the Pigs was about or was going to be about. And all of a sudden, instead of prior networking events that would put a wooden eye to sleep, you suddenly walked into a room of all these characters, people, and it was like this is what you want. This is exactly what you want. So that's probably my... Sarah will probably correct me and say it wasn't a Manchester, the first one, but it was that first one. Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks very much for that.
Okay.
We'll move on to a quick fire questions just to get to know you on a bit more personal basis, just like what we would do at a Pigs event. They're very quick fire. They're just easy questions. Just the first thing that comes to your head. Yeah, just say it. So I'll fire away. I'll start with you, Mark.
Okay.
Would you prefer talking over email or by phone?
Careful.
I know what's going. I know some people say email.
Andy?
Phone.
Yeah. What's your favourite thing to do outside of work?
Football.
Favourite?
Yeah.
Depends who you support.
Yeah, it depends. I'll let you know after tonight's result.
Yeah. Andy?
Spending time with the family or sporting-wise, motorsport, watching motorsport.
Okay. What's your go-to karaoke song?
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. For me, Elvis Presley, Wonder of You.
And I've only got one because if any of my kids are watching, Sweet Caroline, Neil Diamond.
It's not Puff the Magic Dragon.
No, that was I got forced into that.
You've sung that a few times, huh? I've seen the videos.
What time of day do you feel most in the zone? Are you a lark? Are you a morning person or a bit of a night owl?
I'm definitely a night person. Definitely.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Same?
Yeah.
And what's the first gig you ever attended?
First gig. Oh my God.
Within the industry?
No, like music gig.
Oh, okay.
I
remember.
Kylie Minogue.
I thought mine was bad.
That's why I was a bit careful.
In fact, the young people that may watch this will never, but it was a group called Imagination.
Okay,
and it was in a theatre in Coventry somewhere. Yeah, it was my first ever one. Yeah.
Did I get away with that? Kylie Minogue?
Yeah. Yeah, you'll get away with Kylie.
Okay.
And just to go back to the industry, in a year's time, we sit here in a year's time, do you think the industry will be in a better place, a worse place, or about the same?
Industry, I don't know. I think it'll be about the same. But our goal is to be better, be bigger, increase.
Well, there's already a lot of investment already happening as we speak, isn't that?
Yeah.
Just think.
And a lot of inquiries already.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a record not a record, we've had a massive January.
Very good start.
So it's given us a good sort of leg up for the year.
No. Well, thanks very much for that. I really enjoyed some of those answers.
Thank you.
To wrap up the podcast, we're giving all our guests a chance to give a shout out to anyone. It can be anyone outside the industry or in the industry, it doesn't matter. So if you fire it into that camera down there, Andy, we'll start with you.
Two people, Mark Via, who is sort of the head of the family that was instrumental in the birth of Selecta, because without him and the family, we wouldn't all be here. And just wishing a guy that is one of our long-time employees, very well thought of, he's fighting serious illness. Get well soon, Dave.
Right.
Yeah, I think for myself as well, echo what Andy just said with Mark Via. We're here because of Mark. When he first set up with the business and this longevity that we've managed to achieve over these years. And also, I think the other one I'll give to Jamie Munday. He worked at Selecta back in the day, and I was this little kid that kept on going up to him, pulling him by the shirt tail, give me a job. And he kind of set me on my way to where I am today by giving me those opportunities. So he was the first one that really gave me that opportunity.
Thanks very much to Andy and to Mark for joining us today. I really enjoyed hearing your stories from the industry and from being at PiGs since the start. I hope you can join us for another episode soon, and remember to head to the PiGs website at www.peopleinglazing.co.uk to find out when the next PiGs networking event is, and for all your glazing and fenestration people news. And whilst you're there, you can sign up to our new bi-weekly newsletter, aptly named Stein News, straight to your inbox there as well. Goodbye and see you again soon.